So it's like that energy of victory and forward movement is showing up maybe as not balanced. That's what I'm feeling now because it's more in that fire energy. It's more in that red masculine energy of like we're
Mhm.
going for it. Going for the victory. But this one is more of that internal like I'm not looking for the accolades. I'm not looking for the people watching for me. It's just me and the mirror of myself and my higher power.
Peace, I'm Sierra, and you're tuned in to the Tarot Alchemy Podcast. Tarot Alchemy is a place where not only do we explore the meanings and interpretations of each card, but we also show you through engaging in rich conversations surrounding each archetype through Cometicism, Black and Brown spiritual and cultural practices, the esoterics, and ancient wisdom. In today's episode, we will be discussing the Chariot, and I have a little bit of help from a friend of mine, Daniela. So without further ado, let's get into it. Daniela is the founder of PurpleStar Tarot and Apothecary. She is a spiritual counselor, tarot reader, astrology dice practitioner, sound healer, herbalist, ordained minister, and overall awesome person. So thank you so much for joining me on this podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Sierra.
Sounds great. So if you don't mind sharing, how exactly did you get into tarot?
Well, it's really interesting how I got into tarot is first I was kind of like scared of tarot. Like people were like, "Oh, you should look at the way that you identify patterns and learn tarot." And I was like, "No, I'm going to just look at oracle cards." So I went from looking at angel oracle cards, but then I was like, why am I going to shy away from something that scares me? Let me actually dive into it and understand what this is all about.
Mhm.
So by learning about the tarot, that I'm understanding that it's very linked to psychology, through self-discovery, through ways that I can use these signs and symbols and really understand what the pictures are meaning and how that really pertains to life and human experience.
That sounds great. And tarot is one of the most, I would say, close to perfect ways that we can explore these energies and the archetypes and see ourselves reflected back to us in each one of the cards. So that's great. As far as your approach to tarot, is it more leaning towards fortune telling, or how is your practice?
So when I look at tarot cards, and I will say this is not fortune telling. This is really just getting a snapshot of what is going on in life, what the
Mhm.
circumstances are that got us to this situation, what kind of things that we're going to be dealing with during the situation, and what the future can look like. So it's not really fortune telling, it's more like future creating, I would say.
That makes a lot of sense because oftentimes I feel like people want to look into the future but aren't quite solid on where they're at currently. And your approach is very similar to mine. We have to get down into the meat and potatoes of what's going on right now to determine if where you're at in this present moment is conducive to the future you seek within yourself and what you would like to apply with your own goals and dreams, to get in a place where we can actually look at what's going on and the things that we can change or bring out more of, to put you in the driver's seat again and to give you and your own self the opportunity to shape the future that you want to see. And I love that perspective a lot. So that makes a lot of sense. And again, this driver's seat thing keeps coming up. So we're going to go ahead and get into talking about the chariot. We are right in the midst of Cancer season, and the chariot is ruled by Cancer. And before we get straight into that, we kind of need to know where we came from, which is key six.
Yeah, so Lover's card, that's linked to Gemini season, the season we just left.
Mhm.
And if you look at the traditional cards of the lovers, that you have a man and a woman there, which some people will see the Lover's card when they're getting a reading, they're like, oh, my love is coming. But honestly, looking into that Lover's card, it's like this is about balance, it's about choices. And
Mhm.
what I see when you have the female aspect, the male aspect, that is what's inside of you. You have your intuition, you have your drive, you have these two aspects. So I really feel like when I see this lover's card, it's like, what choices are we to make right now? Are we going to become in alignment with what we know our higher good is and how we can really think about commitment and what makes sense for making harmonious, flowing decisions in your life?
Yes, that I agree with that 1,000%. And when I think of the lovers being ruled by Gemini, the season prior, we were in Taurus season where everything was so grounded and whole in that perspective. And Gemini kind of breaks that whole apart so we can take a look deeper into what we're actually considering whole and what's home for us. And also bringing forth this concept of duality in a way. With the lovers card on one side, you see the woman looking up at the angel, and then on the other side, you see the man looking at her. And it's not to say one is right or one is wrong, but to show that both of those energies can exist in us. And then I feel like when we transition from understanding the parts of us that makes us who we are, the human side to us and the spiritual aspects of us, Cancer season kind of brings us to a place where we are putting those different perspectives of ourselves into harmony with one another and really putting ourselves in the position of not necessarily dimming the light of one specific archetype because we feel like it's wrong to feel that way or demonize our human instinct, but to have it balanced well and in sync with the spiritual aspects of us that really create a well-rounded picture of ourselves in this human experience. So that's a great breakdown of the transition between the lovers and to the chariot. So with the
Yeah, I love
chariot,
that.
oh yeah, absolutely. So give us a little bit about the chariot. How do you see that card overall?
Yeah, so thinking about this transition from lovers to Cancer or lovers in Gemini to the chariot in Cancer is like Gemini asked for that expression, the communication. And then chariot
Hmm.
is like, are you ready to get in that car and ride? Are you ready to make that commitment to what it is that you said that you're ready to express, what you're ready to commit to, and really see that you are taking your hands off of the reins of this that you're riding and just trusting that, okay, it came to me in my feminine energy side, and now I'm able to work with it in my masculine energy side and like be able to marry those and
Hmm.
also just have faith that I'm in this chariot for a reason. I'm put there by spirit for a reason.
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can see the chariot on the screen. There's something that I just learned recently. I saw this person talk about the constellation of Cancer and how Cancer has two stars. I forget the actual name, I'll put it on the screen, but one translates to Northern Donkey and Southern Donkey. Yes, so on the chariot, what we see, if you're when we're looking at the Rider-Waite-Smith breakdown of this card, we have an overall yellow theme, which also reminds me of Gemini because Gemini's color is also yellow. I think that has, and I think of the Fool also being an overall yellow card.
Hmm.
So there could be themes of communication and Gemini themes also translating over into this. With it also being a card that is overall a good energy, with the chariot representing, triumph through control. And we see that with the laurel wreath that is over the actual chariot, the green vines that are around the head. And then with the chariot, it looks like they are separated from their home or their domain that they were in prior. And they're separated by a moat in a stream of water, which is also very Cancer coded as well. And with this chariot, it has the symbol that is on it. There's a lot of harmony in this card, the way that I look at it, not necessarily balance, but understanding how energies can coincide or share space with another, and there be space and room for both. And we see that a lot with, if you look at the symbol that is in the middle of the chariot, there is a shield that has what is known as a Lingam and Yoni. If I'm saying that incorrectly, please forgive me. It's a symbol that's related to Hinduism by the goddesses or gods or deities Shakti and Shavi, if I'm saying that correct. They both represent the male and female aspects of energy, or masculine and feminine rather, to represent that force where the it kind of looks like a yo-yo turned on the opposite side, or like an ab wheel turned on the opposite side, where that phallic symbol of that union represents the masculine energy that is very protective, very protective over the feminine and the way that it should be. And then in the middle, that disc represents the actual feminine energy, and we see it both united in a way that neither energy gets where it's blended into the other, but both have its own wholeness, and then together it creates its own energy in a sense of balance in that way also. But there, in this energy, especially with the Sphinx, we see that combination of the lion body, and even with the black and white, reminiscent also of the high priestess with those black and white pillars, showing how these two energies can drive us forward and there be room and space for both. And it should be room and space for both. We shouldn't be too feminine in some aspects. So when I say feminine, I'm not attaching that to a your sex or your gender. I mean passive energy, intuitive energy, and then creating and then balancing that and having that in harmony with the male aspect of it, or the masculine aspects of it, that is more driven and more push and more go forward. There is a space and energy for both of those as well. And I noticed that they have breasts on here. And when I think of ancient Kemet and the Sphinx, they're more so tied to a masculine, they're more presented in a masculine way. But what I ended up finding was that the Sphinx was considered a feminine energy in Greek mythology. So I'm wondering if they're looking at bringing the element of breast and Cancer, also ruling breast and the stomach, that there is some symbolism of connecting the feminine aspects of this energy into this card as well. Another thing that I look at is the overall armor that the chariot is in, and I think of the actual shell of a crab. And I also think of the moon, just like the crustacean that comes out in the moon, and it is divided. We see a more domesticated version of a canine and the wolf, and how both of those are on both two different sides. And so the armor that separates them both, I feel, with Cancer being such a watery energy and our planet being a watery space and spirit also being represented by water, it takes a barrier, a strong barrier, a barrier of armor, the hardness of the crab, that can be as beneficial as it is detrimental, because that we sometimes we don't necessarily allow things to come in to us with such a hard exterior. It becomes a more so of a cage of our energy rather than to be served as a protective barrier. And I feel like that's important when it comes to water and that energy. It's what's making home in you. Are you able to take that shell and not allow it to harden you and harden your spirit, but have a strong container to keep within you what belongs to you versus what's outside of you?
Yeah, so what I did before doing this podcast is I looked at like the chariot and many different cards. Like of course, like whenever I teach tarot, it's important to like look at the Rider-Waite-Smith deck so we can understand the basic um symbolism in those. But what I thought was really interesting when I looked at all these other different decks is like some would use horses, some would use Sphinx. Some of the modern decks would use like a car, and that
Hmm.
kind of is a little looser in the interpretation there. But yeah, like this dualism of the black and white. In some decks, I would see there was red and blue there instead of the
Hmm.
black and white. And so really thinking of like that is like the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of like the red and blue is like our chakras. It's like root energy of being grounded, but then also fire or red energy is also very like leadership and I'm a boss, I'm a king, a warrior, that kind of
Hmm.
energy. Versus the blue, which would be more linking to the water energy of the Cancer of like very emotional, but then also thinking of chakras again, that you have your throat chakra, that's your expression. So it really kind of ties in together as like being able to tie in that expression, but then also tying in this actual like logical side where you're like, okay, I have to be, in order to
Yeah.
get to great heights, I have to be determined and persevere. But then I'm thinking
Mhm.
about the crab. Okay, the crab symbolism. Like looking at this, I'm just looking at this card right now, the Smith Rider Waite Smith deck
Mhm.
of yes, he has all this armor on, but he's inside of a cage machine that also is armor. So it's like it's making me think now of yes, you have to have your own personal protection for your body, but then the thinking of the chariot of this vehicle is like that is like a divine shell of protection that you're inside of as well. So it's like you're doubly protected in a way, as long as you're in this alignment and understanding that you're not the only one driving the ship, that it's being driven by these two earthly forces, which is your body and your drive to actually make the things happen, and then
Mhm.
also marrying that divine body of the intuition and the God-given gifts and the information that is coming for you to act upon. Um, yeah, that's the one thing I really thought about when I was looking at those cards.
That's so important. And when I think of us as a human body, it feels like we're our own personal universe. And we are experiencing it in a way that everything outside of us also experiences that same spiritual energy. And sometimes those roles can get conflated. Sometimes we look too much at what's going on outside of us, that we are influenced by it. And now that hard exterior that was meant to um, keep what's within you as yours, now there's no way to tell the difference between what you're seeing outside of you versus what's going on within you. And it brings it into perspective that even though Cancer is a very emotional driven energy, when I look at this card, Chariot talks about movement in a way that I would expect to see this card in movement, like the Fool, but we don't see that her position or the Chariot position that way. It's still. And being that, and again, with Cancer being that watery feminine energy, I feel like that movement first starts within us and the decisions that we make within us first, to say that these two parts of me exist: my human side, the lion in me, and the more elevated or the more spiritual aspects of me. One doesn't isn't meant to overshadow the other, and I feel like that's where we go into topics of spiritual psychosis, where everything is so ungrounded that we are no longer present in our human experience. And when we see the representation of how those energies work together through the Sphinx, through the Lingam and Yoni, and even on the shoulders of the chariot that have the crescent moons on it, if you're still, when we're looking at the Rider-Waite Smith version. And what I ended up finding about that is that those faces of the moon, one almost looks like it's wincing in pain, or it's not, it feels like a more negative uh perspective of that energy. And then on the other shoulder, it looks like they're laughing. And I think of the tattoos from back in the 90s, and I, as a millennial, that was a huge thing, the laugh now, cry later, where one mask was happy and the other one wasn't. And when I was doing research on that, apparently it represents the Urim and the Thummim. And both of those energies used to be in the Bible, they would be a divination tool. And so the stones were, you had like a black stone and a white stone, or two stones that represented two different energies, almost like a yes, no, or a positive, negative type perspective. And they used to be sewn onto the breastplate of the armor that they would wear. And it was specifically for the high priests of Israel to use those as a divination tool for whatever they were divining for. And I find that that also speaks to harmony, that he's armored in both, and that he's bringing forth this perspective of everything is not always good and light, love and light, everything is not doom and gloom, but there's place for both of those energies to exist. And even when I look at the star that's on the top of the crown, some texts will tell you it's a six-pointed star, but most of the time, what I'm looking at, and even as I'm looking at the card, it's an eight-pointed star that goes back to Venus. And This I had to sit with because I was very unsure about it. But in the Bible, it tells you, and I'll pull up the verses on the screen, that both Jesus and Lucifer were considered morning stars. And so, in a literal sense, Venus was considered to be the morning and the evening star, but that star was the planet Venus, and Venus represents harmony and unity also. And then when I think about Taurus being exalted when it's when the moon is in Taurus, is exalted in that position, and then also connecting those feminine aspects back to Cancer. I feel like there's a dance that happens between those two energies also, and being guided by that morning star light, the light that is on the crown, to be led forth in that more intuitive, uniting, harmonizing energy, and having that on the as part of your crown with the laurel wreath right underneath it representing victory. This card to me translates like I can't lose when I'm in my own driver's seat. All I have to do is put myself in this position to honor every part of me that makes me who I am, good, bad, or indifferent, and drive forth in that way, and then trust and have faith in what's also driving me to lead me to what it is that is going to enlighten me and make me the best version of myself. And also that eight-pointed star goes back to Ishtar, and Ishtar is an energy that connects back to the holiday of Easter, and both of those connecting to this concept of death and rebirth that we celebrate during those times. So even in that, there's so many different layers that I'm seeing in this card that speaks to we're not shunning away one energy from another. There's space and room for both. It's just being in control of both of those energies and understanding that both have their place.
Yeah,
Um,
when the minute that we started talking about this eight-pointed star, I'm like, Ishtar.
I thought so, and I don't know much about that energy at all, but when I think of how similar it is and how we named Easter what it is, and also celebrating the same things and concepts that she represents, we just put a different face on it. And
Right.
then connecting back to those energies, even with the lion aspects, both Lucifer, whose name literally translates to light bringer, the layers in that, the
Hmm.
light bringer and the morning star that is within that energy, and Venus and Lucifer. Jesus was also considered a lion, Lion of Judah. Jesus represented the more majestic side of that lion, whereas Lucifer, or some would also translate that energy to also be Satan, was more so the devouring, the more primal and sexual energy of that lion, and uniting both of them. And then, like, even like going back to the shield, the wings of enlightenment at the top, I think of the caduceus, for example, and how it also has the rod that is fixed and has the wings up at the top that is reminiscent of Mercury and Hermes, the messenger god. There's space and room for both again.
The minute that you mentioned the lions and the dualism of the lions, it just made me think again of that Sphinx. You know, that Sphinx is like half lion, half cat, or half lion, half human. Like
Hmm.
being able to see those two aspects, but it's like it's almost like there's like four versions of that animal because it's two one black, one white, one human, one cat. Like it's just so much to look at in this card. It's really amazing.
It is, and I find most times people don't quite understand what it means in readings to get that in a reading. They're like, okay, I need to move, and this is victory and whatever else, but what does that mean for this particular reading?
As I'm looking at this card, something you brought up made me think of this, that this is a chariot card. It's a major arcana and it's forward facing. So we're not seeing the movement. But if I think about like minor arcana cards, it's making me think now of Six of Wands. How Six of
Mm,
Wands has that laurel. It has the movement. And that's like dealing with these day-to-day kind of aspects that you're and there's people in the background like watching you. So it's like that energy of victory and forward movement is showing up maybe as not balanced. that's what I'm feeling now because it's more in that fire energy. It's more in that red masculine energy of like we're
Mhm.
going for it. Going for the victory. But this one is more of that internal like I'm not looking for the accolades. I'm not looking for the people watching for me. It's just me and the mirror of myself and my higher power moving forward. So it's more balanced of a movement, it feels like. So with the Bhagavad Gita, like when I look at the chariot card, like because one of the when I had decided to discover on my own about my religion or my spirituality, my own beliefs, that one thing that I kind of turned to that was totally different from the upbringing I had was the Hare Krishnas and the looking at Indian philosophy. So the Bhagavad Gita is a book that talks about Krishna, which is like the divine. It's kind of like the Jesus kind of consciousness in that
Mhm.
culture. But in the beginning of the story, that Krishna is on a battlefield inside of a chariot, and he knew that he was to act upon this war, this divine spiritual war that was going on. So he was getting these, like, I would say, like downloads of what it is that your higher calling is telling you to do. But then it was the actual like human action that needed to follow up and actually say, "Oh, okay, I trust this. Even though that's my uncle on the other side of this war, I'm going to kill because this is what I'm being led to do this time." So there's a lot of symbolism there, and I that was just like one of the first things that kind of came to my mind is like a story that's really connecting that because we have the same kind of like archetype across many different spiritual religious texts. And that was, yeah, the Bhagavad Gita. It's very interesting.
That's interesting. And again, even in that story with those archetypes that we see in Christianity, in Comedicism, in the text we were discussing, there is this energy of the human instinct aspect of it and the divinity and how both I mean, when I think of a chariot doesn't go but so fast. I feel like there's a reason that it's the chariot and not a Lamborghini. Like there's space for both, but there's this nurturing aspect that I also think of with the chariot that with Cancer ruling both the breasts and the stomach, both of those being places where we find nourishment. The breast, when it comes to breastfeeding and children, like that's something that is something that connects us back to our that nurturing and that mothering and maternal aspect of this energy. And then the stomach, where we're nourished, we have to eat. Is different from Virgo, where Virgo rules the gut. We're not just talking about the entirety of the digestive system and refining things and breaking things down the way that mercurial energy does, especially with Gemini, but it's a space that we where that food and that nourishment hits first before it does anything else. And when I look at the Chariot in a Thoth tarot deck, you have the chariot seated, but instead of in the Rider Waite where it looks like he may be standing up, he's sitting on that chariot and he has almost, it looks like a shield, but in the middle it's blood and it's radiating this life force that comes out of it. And I feel like that plate that sits directly where the stomach is, and that being the place also where the womb is, even, and how that energy is connecting us back to the life force from where we came from. And so it breaking through those veils of darkness and being led by that eight-pointed star and that light brings forth a different layer to this that shows that there's nothing new under the sun, essentially. And being led by those Sphinx on the Thoth Tarot deck, there's four different Sphinx that are here that represent the elements and those fixed zodiac signs. You have the bull that's on the far left of the card that represents Taurus, the eagle or that represents Scorpio, the man that represents Aquarius, and then the lion on the end that represents Leo, and all of that, and representing those elements and how those elements are the driving force. And so I often think about there's times where, yes, we're in the driver's seat, but we're not the only ones that are navigating through this experience. It's also our spirits. And there's a layer and a level of trust that comes with a chariot that says, yes, I'm in the driver's seat, but I also know that I don't know everything. And I think it makes a lot of sense to be led by those energies where the Sphinx were considered like the gatekeepers between the spiritual and physical realms in some traditions, to be led by those energies. It just shows, sometimes are we actually the ones that's driving ourselves through this human experience, even though we're the ones in the driver's seat? Or are we on cruise control? Are we sitting back and letting spirit do their thing? I feel like there's a balance and a space for both in that energy. There's some chakra connections here also with this chariot card.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like what you just talked about really talked a lot about that because when we look at the medical astrology, you're talking about your heart and you're talking about your gut, like that, your stomach, like that is the symbolism that I'm seeing there too, is that we have the heart chakra, which the heart chakra is represented by the color green, which we don't really have any green on this card, except for actually what's around his breastplate. So that kind of makes a lot of sense there, is that we have this emotional energy, heart chakra being connected to Cancer, to the emotions that we're feeling, and then being able to have that connection with your solar plexus, which is yellow in color, and it really is representative of your drive, your action, your a way to be able to express yourself. So it's like being able to connect your heart with your gut instincts, your intuition of being able to get those to align so you're able to move forward with confidence.
With this energy, I'm also thinking about the psychological side of this as well. A lot of people, what I find interesting is that tarot, especially by Carl Jung, I hope I'm saying his name right properly because I used to say Jung all the time. Now I know better. I think about how he also talked about, even though I find him a little controversial, how tarot would be is a representation of our psychological archetypes and how we can pretty much find ourselves sitting in the seat of any of these cards at any given time. So even though we consider tarot to be something that's very spiritual, it's also very personal, and it doesn't just speak to the spiritual side of us, but also the mental aspects of us and how it plays a role in how we digest that information and how we express that energy also. Um, Specific archetypes, especially related to Carl Jung and his psychology, what do you find there when it comes to the chariot?
I definitely would say like warrior is the first one that comes to my mind because
Hmm.
when I see that chariot, it's like you're sitting in the warrior's machine that is on the battlefield that is going towards something. I feel like that's the biggest one that I think about, but also the hero, because the hero is there to, whatever it takes, they're there to save the day kind of thing, which in this case would be like saving your own personal day because it's your and your sphere that you're working within.
You mentioned warrior, and I find that very fitting for this energy, even though it is extremely feminine in its approach. The warrior aspect of this is when I think of a warrior archetype from a more feminine perspective, I think of an energy that fights for more than just ourselves. The harmony and wants unity, but not in a way where we turn into where it's so blended that you can't tell one from another. Just like we America is considered a melting pot, and I don't quite resonate with that too much because when you put everything in a homogeneous mixture, you can't really tell one thing from another. And rather than comparing it to like, I can't think of the lady's name, but she called it a salad bowl instead, where everything shines individually on its own. And together, it also creates a beautiful experience. So, what we're fighting for in that instance is the opportunity for each one of us to sit in the seat of that chariot and to bring forth the things that we are really good at, the things that resonate so much with us, and then using that to interact with the world first. And so again, like earlier when we talked about, cancer and ruling the home, well, what's making a home in you? Are you concerned so much with the things that exist outside of you that you allow those external forces to determine your own sanctity, your own divinity, your own source of dominion and personal power? Or are you looking from within and then having your perspectives shifted outward in the ways that make sense in those moments? And so perspective is everything. And I feel like even like before when we talked about in that warrior aspect of knowing when we can lean back a little bit and let spirit do its thing, and when we need to lean up a little bit, and we also need to, there is a balance there. There is a balance of both. It's a more sovereign type of warrior energy. It's not so harsh and brash and seeking to destroy everything. Though some things do have to be destroyed and taken apart in order for other things to grow. I think back to Aries season and how a seed is buried in darkness before it can sprout outward and nourish us in ways that, however, that seed can nourish us or whatever it provides for us. There's space and room for both. Everything can't always be unity and harmony and love and light. There also has to be a space where we have to tear some things apart. And I feel like that's another thing. It's like, yes, victory, but what is being sacrificed for the sake of that victory? What things have to be broken down? What things have to be severed and separated from us in order for us to move forward? Because everything can't come with us. Our old ideologies and ways of thinking, even in this seat, as we're both taught discussing tarot and have a lot of information and background on it, next year, who's to say that we see this card in the same light? And so with that chariot archetype, there's a fluidness to it, especially going back with the water that separates you from the chariot itself from its area of domain into moving forward throughout the rest of the fool's journey. There's a place for both. So just another observation with that. And the connection with the Kabbalah is prominent here also, that with the Hebrew letter of Chet, that sacred, that talks about that sacred enclosure within us. And I go back to that armor that we're wrapped in and the shell of the crab, understanding the balance in that also, and not being so hard and closed off that we withdraw, or like a crab moves side to side. A crab doesn't go forward and backwards. If a crab needs to avoid something, it's scooting over one side and it's moving over the other. It's almost very avoidant in that way, and withdrawing to our shell and our hermit. Our That's funny mentioning the hermit in this too. But understanding when to pull back even, and allowing that protective barrier, which I would say that has a lot to deal with our own spiritual team and the protections that we place around ourselves, and understanding the balance between both for sure. The Comedic Connections, I really love how this card is represented in the Comedic Tarot deck. It is my absolute favorite tarot deck ever. I remember being on TikTok and seeing this reader use these cards, and I don't know what she was talking about. I just saw those cards and I was like, I gotta have it. I love this deck so much. It is represented by the Atet and that chariot. It took me a while to understand the connection there, but when it comes to that Atet, it's pretty much a solar bark or a vessel where that energy, that boat contains the sun, Amun Ra, represented as the sun god. And then in the card, it has Ma'at at the front and Tahuti in the back, but those energies can be exchanged at any time. And with Ma'at leading this vessel, Ma'at represents justice and those balanced scales that connect back to Libra also, and truth and light, and being led by that light with Amun-Ra in the middle, and then Tahuti as the scribe, the person who records and documents this, so that not only are the present able to appreciate the knowledge that's left behind, but those things carry over. I find that like things written in hieroglyphics on the stones and things like that, I find that was the perfect way to preserve that energy over a long period of time. So pretty much that vessel is entered in whenever the sun sets, that the sun contains that solar bark. And as it sets in the west, the gates are opened by the Kemetic deities of Aset and Nebet-Het, which are sister energies. One was more of the healer and the magician with Aset, and then Nebet-Het was more so concerned with the darker realms and themes around death. But what happens is once those gates are open and the solar bark goes down into the underworld, they defeat the same serpent every single night. Every time the sun sets, their mission is to go and defeat that serpent energy. And then as the sun rises again in the east, those gates are open again and the sun positions itself back into the heavens and the sky. And even in that energy, it's something that happens every single day for thousands and thousands of years. And I find it that it fits well into this archetype here, because what we're doing is not, the Atet didn't go down and just defeat it, and now we just got the sunlight all day long. No, we also need rest periods. We need periods where things have to transition. We need period. Those things are vital and important for our growth. Otherwise, we're just robots, and that does nothing for us in this human realm, in this human experience. And so having that connection, and then also with the Sphinx, again, symbolism in this card also, I find that's the perfect expression of this card in that deck for sure.
Yeah, so with the Yoruba connections, like there's not an oracle card or anything to look at there. There's a different divination system, but in cosmology, that it's still dealing with listening to your higher self, your inner self, which is called your Ori, and that is like your destiny. Everybody has an Ori, everybody has a soul purpose. So this is really looking at that soul purpose that you have and your destiny, your Ayanmo, to really understand like you have a divine calling, and then relating that to this chariot energy that we have the Yoruban deities that are associated with the body and the spirit, and being able to actually have the drive to connect your energy that you have as a human with your higher or inner self. And then very, very similar, like what you were talking about with the darker energy, which in Yoruban cosmology, that there is Eshu, and that is the Orisha of the crossroads. So with that being able to kind of see the choices that you're making, being at that crossroads and understanding you can go this way, you can go that way. And then the chariot, then that symbolism just kind of brings that back up to you're choosing your higher path. You're choosing what is your destiny, what is your higher self's want there.
I feel like we've been so heavy in this energy and how it translates over. I'm looking at the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot deck and how it represents the chariot as dance.
Yes, I really like that. Like I was looking at that deck just to kind of get that perspective as well. And like that is like it's like the divine dance that we're doing. And if you actually look at like, like your Reuben cosmology, like actually like ceremony, being able to say that, okay, this is the time that we're going to be beating the drums. We're going to get out of this, we're going to be speaking to our soul self, not our body self. But then you're really marrying the movement, the dance that you are doing physically with your body, and just letting spirit completely take over. That's where you'll start getting, imagery of people who are like talking tongues or like singing songs or whatever it is they're doing. Because in that part, they're saying that the spirit has really inhabited your body, and it is helping you to make those choices when you're out of this trance, out of this dance, to be able to move forward with what your destiny and your calling is. So yeah, it's the divine dance or the divine spaceship, but we're riding it either way.
That makes a lot of sense. And I feel like when it comes to experiencing this energy, it definitely is a dance. And especially in its feminine aspect for sure, but there's this fluidity and this motion where you're not so rigid like the emperor maybe, where everything is so structured and built out, but it's learning how to shift and move with that energy, and being flexible enough to be able to say, okay, one day maybe this is how I'm feeling, and then the next, just because I felt this way one day doesn't mean that anything is wrong with me feeling differently the next. Or if my spiritual practices look like something one day, it doesn't mean that where I was previously was wrong. It gave you exactly what you needed in that moment in time for the experiences that you were having at that time. I think about my own spiritual journey and how, I was pretty much brought up in Christianity. In the beginning of my spiritual awakenings and everything, I demonized it, I villainized it. It has its, I'll leave that where it is. But one thing that I learned throughout those practices growing up was the energy of devotion and being devoted to something that is bigger than myself, allowing myself to see, hey, this is what it looks like to have a practice where I am honoring the energy that is around me. I'm honoring where I am presently, and I'm honoring where I'm going. And seeing myself as part of a bigger picture, seeing myself as, even though I feel like this insignificant speck in the universe in the grand scheme of things, to ground and bring that back. I am also a representation of that universe. I'm spirit experiencing my own universe, and there's room and space for both. And learning how to be devoted to something that's bigger than ourselves speaks to this chariot and being led by those sphinx energies, or whatever spirits we can interchange in its place for whatever resonates with whoever may be watching. It's allowing ourselves and giving ourselves the opportunity to be fluid in how we do this dance and this thing that we call life, for sure. Any last minute things to add to this, or
Um,
perspectives?
Yeah, I feel like we've covered everything, and like the biggest like final thoughts, I'm really just like seeing that theme of the dualism and really just tying those things together, thinking of all of the different ways that we are able to understand that we are this spiritual soul, but we are also in this divine vessel, and it's kind of our free will of whether or not we are going to act upon these, or if we're going to I'm thinking now like the reverse of Chariot, if we're going to ignore that, if we're not going to get in that car, we're not going to take that choice, that decision to go forward. So union is what it looks like here, and really um, calming the waters of Cancer by getting in that car and trusting it.
This was such an enriching and enlightening conversation, and it's got my wheels turning to look at this card in so many different ways. I thought we did an excellent job at showing how this energy translates to various spiritual practices and cultural practices. There's space and room in this card to see yourself regardless of what your background and your upbringing or your faith may be. The energy itself and its overall message translates and transcends beyond the containers that we use to express it. So this, I'm very pleased with this card, and experiencing this during Cancer season is the perfect time to make sure we reinforce our boundaries, and that we understand that we are not walking alone in this human experience, that we are always guided under with the experience, with the energy of the stars and the cosmos, all the way down to our own ancestors and our very own spirit, our own Ori, even our own higher self. There's space and there's room for both. We just have to learn how to flow and don't take things too seriously. We're here to learn, we're here to grow and experience life as it comes, for sure. So thank you for this episode. I really appreciate all of the input. This was very enlightening.
Of course, thank you for having me. It was fun to start thinking about this before Cancer season. So it's just getting us prepared to like this is the energy we're working with right now. So let's get in alignment.
Sounds good. So before we go, I just thought we would add this fun thing that I call tarot tea. And this is just a quick session, a quick way to do like a little pop quiz question for you. That I didn't
Okay.
let you know this before, because I just kind of want you to go off the dome and see what happens. So, okay, your favorite tarot deck.
Ooh, okay. So the deck that I always use is called the Wandering Star deck. I love that tarot deck. It's very like it has themes and pictures that are very similar to the Rider Waite, but it's just like so bright and colorful that like really
Mm,
speaks to me. I feel like I should pull a card and just like see what card comes out.
yeah, go for it.
Okay, let's see. Let's see what comes out. Oh gosh, I'm not gonna look. Okay. Oh, okay.
Wait,
This is the
Six of
Six of
Swords.
Swords. Six of Swords.
Okay.
Okay. So like what I really like honestly, I was kind of even thinking about Six of Swords when you were talking about the solar bark. Like they're in this ship, right? They're in this ship and they're all taking turns of like how to go about it. And like comparing that with the Rider Smith deck is that there's three people on that card. There's the man rowing the boat,
Yep.
there's the woman sitting down with the baby. So like in that, like I can see that symbolism of okay, one of us has to be the steerer, one of us has to take care of the baby. Like there's different roles for everybody in that. But the difference with this card is you can see there's only one person on this.
Hmm.
So when this card comes out and I'm doing a reading for like a solo person, I'm like, okay, this is something that you're gonna have to go on this journey on your own, because you're too in your thoughts. You're moving on to something else, and you don't need to bring everyone else. You need to figure out what your role is. And I see that kind of even relates to this whole conversation on cancer. So I'm glad that card came out.
Perfect. Perfect. And especially with it being in the sword suit, you wouldn't think off the top of your head that it had a place in such a watery card, but that's showing you that these elements all work together. And regardless of what element resonates for you the most, or maybe you feel like you're full of water because your whole birth chart ain't nothing but Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces, maybe, it's understanding how to navigate your human experience as you come naturally, while also having these as allies in your own personal experience as well. So that is great. Okay, your favorite tarot major arcana card.
Ooh. Like the first one that came to my mind like was the devil card, but that's not my favorite. I only thought of that because I'm a Capricorn. And then I
Okay.
always try to do this like flip the meaning, or look at it in a different light of yes, you have things that you probably need to let go of, but also embodying that Capricorn energy. But honestly, the star card, I mean, I love stars.
Mm,
I love stars. I love shining, and I like being able to kind of illuminate that everyone has that star quality inside of them if they're ready to be authentic and really trust their divinity.
that makes a lot of sense. And considering we talked about that star in the chariot, and then the star card being an Aquarius card that comes not too far after the devil card, and then the
Oh, the very
tower
next
card.
one. Yeah, right?
It's a card of rebirth and rebuilding. It's a very healing card. And so that makes a lot of sense for the work that you do now, in herbalism and everything that you, and even in your tarot readings, that speaks a lot to the energy that you're coming with in your practices is meant to heal and then also thrive from it and rebuild and pour into ourselves and our own lives in a way where there's a bit more of a firm foundation and a solid foundation that's going to carry us forward. So, okay,
Right. And
favorite,
just like the stars,
uh-huh.
like the solar system, like you can look out there and you see there's millions of stars that are shining. Like you are not your own solo star, that you're shining in a galaxy with all these other stars too.
Absolutely. Okay, favorite minor arcana card.
Ooh, minor arcana card. First one I saw in my mind's eye was the Five of Wands.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay.
Five of Wands. That's an interesting card. It's been like in my orbit recently. It kind of feels as like the symbolism of that card is like it's literally five people with all these sticks that are it looks like they're fighting. It looks like they're beating each other up with
Hmm.
these sticks. But like if they actually took the time to work together, that they would be making a star. So like here we are back to the stars again, but like really seeing that star as like manifestation, as power, as being able to shine together. So it's like that card is symbolism of people fighting to be the leader, but
Hmm.
also reminding you that maybe you need to step back and not all the leaders. I guess like the I'm thinking now of like that ground up leadership of like understanding like I have many different roles that I could be playing, and if somebody's skills are greater than mine in a certain arena, I'm gonna let them be the top of the star, and I'll be the left side of the star, and it's okay because the star can keep on turning. It doesn't matter which position you're in, just as long as we can communicate and work together and not have these debates on who's going to be where.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, and even thinking about that card, I think of high school drama. Nobody's trying to throw any lethal blows. It's just catty, it's petty, it's surface level confliction. But then to bring that to ourselves, also when I think of that card, I think of it as manifestations of ourselves in each one of those five wands. So to bring it, when I look at that card, especially if it's a reading where I'm solely focused on myself, when that card comes up for me, it's like, okay, my brain is going in a million different directions. I'm conflicting there's a lot of things in the way I move that contradicts one way of what I believe and what I'm actually doing. And it's just this power grab. It's this positioning where everybody's fighting to be heard, but nobody is grounded and taking the
Mhm.
time to let that person be at the top of the Christmas tree for this
Right.
season. And it doesn't mean that your positioning is any less. It's just that this person has attributes and things that are relevant to conversations that are around that present time. And then when things shift, that star gets put down and another one gets put in its place. And it doesn't, we're in a space now where even with this platform, I'm focusing a lot on collaborating with people because a lot of people want to tell you that this is the right way and this is wrong. But where we're at now, and especially in this conversation, there's space for everything. There's space for everybody to shine and exist. And when I think of religion as a whole, everybody's saying the same thing.
Right.
Everybody's saying the same thing, but people are so consumed by a monotheistic way of thinking that we haven't taken the time. I think of like in the church, they would say, "You're so heavenly bound, you're no earthly good." Like, can you look around? Can you look around and see we're all saying the same thing in our own way
Mhm.
and everything has its place? So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Even
Okay.
with you saying that, though, it made me go back to even thinking of like Gemini season. Okay, that's communication. And we look at religion, it's like, okay, the Tower of Babel is like there to cause this conflict in communication and expression between all of these different aspects. And one other thing I want to share about that card, I really love that you mentioned your personal um, look at that because this my favorite deck that I just showed with you. Okay, I found the card. This is the Five of Wands in that deck. Oh gosh. And so it's two cats there instead of a whole bunch of people fighting. And whenever I see that, the way that I explain it in my readings is like that's inner cat versus outer cat. That's your
Mm.
higher self versus your human self. That's like really conflicting with one another. So I just love that you explained it that way because that's how I explain it with my weird cat deck.
That's okay. And I think about those cats. You never really see cats in packs. They're all very individualistic. It's all, I'm the star. Even like when I think of people who own cats, they always say they come with this majestic persona that even though you're the human, I run this place.
So true. So true.
And so in that card, it's like those conflicting energies of who's going to be at the top again. Like, okay, there's space and room for both. Otherwise, there wouldn't be over 7 billion people on this planet believing things the way that they do if we could only just put the wands down for a second and
Just put the
listen to
wands
what we're
down.
saying. Put them down, like just ease it for a second.
I love
Let's
it.
transfer over to that Six of Wands energy where the ones who were once beating each other up are now celebrating the star that's at the top with the Six of Wands. That can
It's like
also
we can
be
all
you.
take turns celebrating each other, right?
At least we get it.
That's why we're here together.
Absolutely. Okay. Last question. Your favorite suit of the minor arcana?
Gosh, I don't want to be biased and say Pentacles because I'm a Capricorn again. Oh my gosh, that's like honestly the first thing came to my mind. But yeah, it has to be that. Like I would say Pentacles, not just because people don't associate it with money and career and all that, but it's like
Mm.
that is the proof of the tangible manifestation that all of the other suits bring together. It's like, yeah, you can have the drive, you can have that fire, you can have that intellect to bring it all together, but it's like, are you able to actually take that time and dedication it makes to create it, something that you can hold? So, Pentacles all day.
I couldn't have said that any better. I think it's important here to make the distinction with the pinnacle suit that everybody thinks is just money, but it's like you said, it's also the tangible things and it's also our behaviors. So we can be intuitive, we can be passionate, and we can be intellectual and mental in those suits. But what are we doing with it? It's one thing to have all of these great gifts and things, but how are you using those energies to help you in this human experience? How is having this knowledge, having it is one thing, but using it and manifesting it into what you are passionate about and what drives you is a whole different thing. So what keeps you going in that sense? I Pinnacle suit is for sure a favorite of mine also as a Virgo. Like yeah,
Earth
I get it
sign.
a thousand
Okay.
percent. Okay, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I just want to say thank you so much. And before we go, let us know any upcoming events.
Yeah, well, so what I have going on, you can always find me at purplestar-tarot.com. That's where I have all my information about what I'm doing. Locally, locally I have my weekly spots that I go to every Thursday. I'm at a coffee shop, 666 Social. Every Friday, I'm at the farmers market doing readings in the morning. Um, and then I'm going to be doing a sound bath next month. I have a
Ooh.
couple sound baths signed up, ready to go. I call them my rainbow body tune-ups, where I do my cosmic sound healing, and my partner does somatic breath work. Um, but other than that, right now, what I'm working on personally is I'm working on my own book. I have a couple different book ideas that I'm working on. And first, I'm starting off with astrology because I use astrology dice in all of my readings. But then I'm going to be working on some other little like worksheets, programs, classes, so people can really take the time to examine what the cards they were dealt, what stars are shining when they were born, so they can kind of understand how to really intuit all of this information together so they can build on how can I see myself and work with the energies that I have.
I love that. I love that. And also, if anyone did not catch that, don't worry. I'll have her contact information in the description of the video, as well as all of your social media handles for Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all of the places. And yeah, this was such an enriching and enlightening conversation. And we will definitely meet in this space again, whenever our schedules align for sure. And let us know down in the comments how you felt about this conversation, any things that may have come up for you as well, and any other perspectives that you may have on the chariot and its influence in Cancer season and the lessons that it is bringing forth. So, with that, we're going to let you go and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much.